How can the Mariners get a more consistent Robbie Ray in 2023? Who are the lead dogs in Seattle's bullpen? We'll answer that and more on today's mailbag episode of Locked On Mariners. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Monday, February 6, 2023. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. And thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description below. It is Mailbag Monday, the show where we answer some of your Mariners and occasionally non-Mariners questions. Let's just get right into these. Starting with Michael, who wants to know, what does Robbie Ray need to do to consistently perform at a high level this coming season, and how confident are you that he will get back on track? So Colby, I think for Ray, in order for him to find success more consistently than in comparison to this past year, it's really about getting that slider more consistent and getting more value out of that slider consistently, right?
Yeah, the slider kind of sinks or swims Robbie Ray, so to speak. He's only a two-pitch pitcher. I know he mixed in the two-seamer last year. That started to be less effective as we got further down the year. He doesn't really have a changeup or a curveball, so it's fastball slider. And he's been pretty successful with just that combination for most of his career. Even won a Cy Young with that combination. So yeah, it comes down to the fastball and the slider. It'd be nice to see the velo go back up to where it was. It was pretty low early in the year, and then towards the middle, it was still below what he would normally was throwing, but it was adequate enough. So really what it comes down to is he has to get the slider. It was really flat at the end of last year. It wasn't a lot of it. It didn't have the two-tier break, right? It just kind of spun and slightly moved. It was basically a really bad cutter. And you combine that with the lack of fastball command towards the end of the year, and it just torpedoed, his rebound essentially, because really from May until about August, Robbie Ray was really good. He was Robbie Ray. He had 118 innings pitched. He had a 3.34 ERA, a 3.80 FIP. Opponents were hitting 211 with a 284 on base. And he had 149 strikeouts in 118 innings. So for a vast majority of last year, he was exactly what you want and think Robbie Ray can be. It was just he had a rough month of April, and he had a really rough September and October. So it's all about the slider. When he has the slider, he's still a very good pitcher. He can still strike a lot of guys out. He can still get deep into games. So I guess to answer the second part of the question, I'm pretty darn confident that Robbie Ray is going to get back to being a 3-win pitcher. Even last year, even with 2.5 months that were just terrible, he was still, 2.5-win player. So, I feel pretty good about it.
Yes, so do I. I think he's going to get back on track this year. I think the off season's break will allow him to kind of revert back to neutral here and work on some things. And the fact that he's been willing to kind of reinvent himself even on the fly. We saw this past year where he re-implemented the two-seamer, and I'm really interested to see how much, if at all, that pitch gets implemented into his game plan this year. Is it still a thing that sticks around? Because he's kind of gone off and on. It's been an off and on relationship with that pitch for Robbie Ray. So really interested to see that. But yeah, again, it's just all about getting that slider back on track. Because if you get that slider back on track, you get Robbie Ray back on track. And that's the most important thing here. All right, Next question comes from Jamie, who wants to know, what do you think of Julio batting leadoff? I think it's fine for 2023, but long term, they need to find a leadoff bat and move Julio back to the number 3 spot. So we talk about this quite a bit, the leadoff spot, how we value the leadoff spot, how we think that spot should be utilized in general. I'm of the belief, and I think you're on the same wavelength here, Colby, that you should have your best hitter hit leadoff because statistically speaking, he's going to get the most at bats. And you want your best hitter to get the most at bats. And Julio, for his speed as well, he's kind of a traditional leadoff guy plus power. He's a unicorn, right? So I have no issue with him being the number one hitter in the order. Yeah, does it not create scoring opportunities for him the first time through the order? Sure. But every time after that, he's going to get opportunities as long as the bottom of your order is producing. So he'll get his opportunities to drive in runs. That's not really an issue for me. And at the end of the day, he's guaranteed to get the most at bats on the team. So unless they were able to add an elite on base guy, and I'm talking like of the caliber of Brandon Nimmo here. And, we talked about this a little bit when we were talking about Nimmo as a fit this offseason. Unless they get someone like that, someone that's that quality, I'm not even thinking twice about having Julio as the leadoff man in my lineup.
Yeah, I guess I just wonder why he has to be number 3, and like why not number 2?
It's the traditional power hitting,
right
spot in the order. But yeah,
to me, any lineup where Julio is in the game but he's not hitting first or second is a non-maximized lineup. He probably should be hitting leadoff. But if you want to say, hey, we have this guy who's a really good on base guy, we'll put him leadoff, and then we can have Julio hit behind him to give him some RBI opportunity, fine. Like, I get that. If you go acquire Brian Reynolds and he's putting up a 360 on base percentage and you say Reynolds is going to lead off and Julio is going to hit second, fine. But if you're not going to do that, like who would hit leadoff this year?
Colton
Wong against righties, maybe.
Yeah.
Do you really feel good about Colton Wong as your leadoff getting the most at bats on this team out of anybody?
Yeah.
You shouldn't. So Ty France doesn't make sense in that spot. Julio is the best guy for that job. He doesn't need to hit 3. You need to get the bat in his hands as much as possible. And even if the Mariners go out and they add 2 Teoscar Hernandez level bats at the deadline, Julio should still be hitting first or second. It doesn't sound like a lot, but the difference between hitting first and third in a season is about 50 at-bats, 50 plate appearances. Do you want Julio to have 50 more plate appearances or 50 fewer plate appearances? It kind of adds up. So, yeah, to me, he's the leadoff guy, and I would keep him there for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not even, again, like I said, I'm not even thinking twice about that. I'm just going with it because, again, like you pointed out here, who's the other guy on the roster right now? Yeah, if they go out and acquire someone, and again, I'm talking about like of the same ilk of, the Yandy Diaz's, the guys that get on base like at a 400 clip, I'm talking like that. Outside of that, I have really no interest in taking Julio off of that spot. He's my best hitter. He's going to get opportunities to drive and run still. It doesn't matter. I just want him to get as many opportunities to swing the bat as possible because he's my driving force. He's the engine to this whole thing. So, yeah. All right. We got a few more questions to go over here in just a moment, but real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by FanDuel. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sportsbook in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet on Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. Last time the Eagles were in the Super Bowl, Nick Foles, of course, caught a touchdown pass, and right now a touchdown reception by any quarterback this Sunday sits at plus 5,000 on FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. It's Mailbag Monday. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Let's get back into these questions here, Colby. Starting with 3'9". After having such a great year in 2021, we haven't heard you guys really mention Casey Sadler as any sort of option for making the final 26. Or his injuries from last year that concerning going into 2023? It's not really a concern. It's just it's a big question mark, right? I have no idea what to say really in terms of Sadler's ability to make the 26-man roster right now, because we haven't seen him pitch. We don't know for sure if he's going to be able to pitch right away. We had him on the show a few weeks ago and he said that he will be, but we don't know if the organization also agrees with that sentiment. So we don't really know where he is right now in his timeline. He says that he's throwing, he's full participant, all that stuff, so that's great. And I hope so. But yeah, until I see him in spring and until I see him being able to consistently throw, especially coming off of shoulder surgery, that's a really difficult injury and procedure to come back from as a pitcher, especially, not even a year removed from it. And to get back to where he was in 2021, that's asking a lot. I don't know right now if Sadler is one of the 8 best relievers in the Mariners organization right now. And all due respect to Casey, I'd put my money on that not being the case at the moment until I see him, until he changes my mind, essentially.
Right. You have to earn it, right? And what Casey Sadler did 2 years ago doesn't matter at all, right? He doesn't get the benefit of the doubt because he was really good 2 years ago. It doesn't matter to the Seattle Mariners. They don't care because, again, like Ty mentioned, it's a shoulder injury. That's a very serious injury. And he's trying to work his way back. So the 0.67 ERA or whatever it was, doesn't matter. He's got to go and he's got to outpitch guys like Justin Topa, who we know Jerry really likes. He's got to go outpitch guys like even Bukauskas, who's stayed in the organization. I haven't been able to
talk today either, so I don't know what's going on here.
But he stayed in the organization, so our prospect ranks are still good, just for the record.
That's right. Number 23, baby. He's still here.
That's right. Isaiah Campbell, Travis Kuhn, and not to mention the guys who are front runners right now, like Matt Festa and Penn Murphy. So he's got to outpitch all of those guys to find a spot, and it's looking pretty tough. We'll see. I wouldn't put it past him. It's certainly a possibility. But I think a lot of people are assuming that he walks in with that resume of having thrown a 0.67 ERA a few years ago, so he's got a really good shot. No, that's not a thing. That doesn't exist when you're coming off of a major shoulder injury.
Yeah, so hoping for the best for him. Really like Casey, and he was great in 2021, of course, and would love to have that kind of arm in this bullpen. But again, I have to see it with my own eyes before, because again, he's on a minor league contract right now. There's a lot of guys that are on the 40-man roster that are vying for the same spot that he is, and there really is only 1 or 2 spots available in that bullpen as long as everyone stays healthy. And now that's a big if, but still, that's it's a pretty tall mountain for Sadler to climb this spring. And I kind of just wonder if it would be better for him to maybe start the year in AAA, kind of ease back into things, and then if he's pitching well and he feels good, to get him on the major league roster eventually, later on in the season.
Right.
All right. Next question here comes from Ant, who asks, early in a January episode, Colby mentioned that there was animosity between Kyle Seager and the front office, specifically saying that Seager had lied about them to the media. Do you mind elaborating on that for listeners unfamiliar with this situation? Colby?
Yeah. So basically, you guys remember the temper tantrum that Kyle Seager threw after the Kendall Graveman trade, and then after the season when he said, "Oh, they never even tried to contact me. They didn't tell me they were going to decline the option. They just announced it before they told me. I haven't spoken to Jerry in 4 years." That's all BS. Every single word of that is BS. First of all, the Seattle Mariners don't owe Kyle Seager an explanation for anything that they do. Literally nothing. Kyle Seager does not have the weight to throw around to think that he should be consulted in deals that Jerry DiPoto made. None whatsoever. But the biggest issue is that from what we were told, Seager was attempting to use his influence as a veteran in the clubhouse to persuade some of the younger players not to take, let's say, because I don't want to get dinged by YouTube, proper medical procedures to avoid getting losing playing time due to the pandemic, right? Essentially, he was going around saying, "Hey, don't do this. I don't want you to do that. And the Mariners had an issue with that, as they should, because it was Seager directly sticking his nose in a spot it doesn't belong whatsoever. Kyle Seager should not be giving out medical advice, period. And the Mariners didn't like that. Seager at that point was already pretty upset with the organization. We know this. Then obviously you have the Kendall Graveman trade where he went on the record, but not really, and blasted Jerry Dipoto and the organization, saying they don't care about winning.
Jerry's just up there playing fantasy baseball.
Yeah, he's up there playing, like, just called out Jerry. Didn't put his name to it. Wasn't brave enough to put his name to it because Kyle Seager being brave.
Ryan Divish confirmed it was him in the comments section of Lookout Landing, I think. Yeah.
It was Seager, right? So Seager had an issue with that. Then, of course, the whole thing about Kyle Seager goes and he tells the media they didn't even try and contact me to tell me they were going to decline my option. It's not true. It's simply not true. We were told that the Mariners reached out to Kyle Seager and his agent several times to ask about what his plans were for the 2022 season and, what they were trying to do with his option. And Seager didn't respond. His agent didn't respond. They ignored them. Now, why would you do that, you might ask? So that you can go out and say that the Mariners screwed you and you could try and bury the Mariners on your way out of town. Kyle Seager is a liar. He tried to use his influence to talk people out of getting medical procedures that they thought they needed or that they did need, whatever. And he tried to burn the ground on the way out of town. Kyle Seager was a bad teammate. At the end of the day, the players love him, right? The guys in the clubhouse, they love him. That's Siegs, whatever.
JP, Mitch, etc. All those guys love him.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the player. They're going to have the players back. But what Kyle Seager attempted to do to Jerry Dipoto and the front office and the Mariners organization as a whole on his way out of town is pretty slimy. So that's the issue with Seager. He wasn't a good dude. At the end of the day, he was a distraction his last year in Seattle. It's a bummer that that's how it had to end. Did I get a little bit of joy after, the Mariners make the playoffs the first year he's not on the team? Yeah, a little. Not going to lie. A little bit, yeah. So, don't be a bad teammate. Kyle Seager was a jerk, plain and simple.
I was told by someone that I trust very much who would definitely be in the know a long time ago. I got a random message on Twitter from them saying it's a lot worse than you think it is.
Yeah. That's just what we were told too, by the way.
And I believe Divish also reported the thing about him ignoring the club reaching out to him. Maybe I'm incorrect on who reported that. I believe someone did though in the Seattle.
That's common knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. And wasn't that what sparked Divish to make an apology and all that about his reporting? There was a whole thing on Twitter where he sent out an apology.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was that.
I'm not sure.
The last couple of years have been kind of a blur, but yeah,
lots happened the last few years. So.
Yeah, lots gone down. Yeah. But I just in terms of Seager overall as a player, I appreciate everything that he did for the city and for the organization. And he certainly is a legend in the organization and one that should be recognized in the Mariners Hall of Fame here pretty soon.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the way that his tenure here came to an end does leave a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. And again, this is all he said, she said, and who knows what exactly is fact and all that stuff. But just from everything that I know, things could have been handled a lot better on Kyle Seager's end, as well as the Mariners end, maybe a little bit. Who knows? But yeah,
I don't think the Mariners owe anything to Kyle Seager. Just to be honest, I don't think that.
Sure.
They owe explanations or anything for anything that they did. But Seager didn't leave gracefully and was an active issue in the Mariners clubhouse and hostile towards Scott and Jerry at the end. And that's really what it's all about. So, time heals all wounds. But I'm with Ty. I look at Seager a little bit differently than I did 3 years ago.
Yeah, I do too. Yep. All right. Next question comes from Langston. Very simple question here. Who is the opening day designated hitter for the Mariners? I mean, that's the question of the day, isn't it? Who is going to be the DH for the Mariners on opening day? Well, if you want to specifically talk about opening day right now, I'm sure your question
AJ
is
Pollock.
asking us to make a big grand statement here. But I think more simply, like if we just want to get into the nitty gritty of this, on opening day, Guardians are most likely going to be running out Shane Bieber, righty. So I would suspect that maybe it's a lefty. Maybe the Mariners just want to get their best 9 in there. So yeah, that would be Pollock. But if not, if they are playing some matchups, if Scott Service wants to play the handedness game like he typically does, Tommy LaStella maybe, dark horse Taylor Trammell, or maybe Teoscar Hernandez DHs, and they have some combination of Kelnick or Trammell and Pollock or what have you in the outfield. But yeah, I assume this question is trying to get us to make a bigger, grander statement about some addition that they could make here. I don't think they are right now. I just don't foresee it. With everything that we've heard from Jerry DiPoto, we've heard some things that they're still trying to acquire both pitchers and hitters right now, but who knows if that's actually gonna happen here. So right now, my bet is on some form of LaStella, Pollock, Teoscar, one of those guys being the DH on opening day against Shane.
If you're asking specifically just on opening day, I think it's Pollock. I think they give it to the veteran and the guy that they're kind of banking on more than any of the other guys mentioned to have a good year for them. So I think, Kelnick will be in left field, Pollock will DH. And then I think a majority of the time it's going to be a bit of a platoon. Moran is somebody to throw in there. LaStella, Pollock will get some DH days against right-handed pitching still. And like Ty said, it's possible that Trammell makes the team or, they make a small trade at the end of spring training. But specifically for opening day, I would say that AJ Pollock's probably in the lineup.
All right, we got a couple more questions to go over here in just a moment. But real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by Built Bar. Looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. And if you're like me, where you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, man, I've got just the thing for you. You got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious you won't think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. And what makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they are all covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get yourself a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. And if you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. All right, let's get into these last couple questions here, Colby. We got one here from Duffy, who asks, from 1 through 8, in what order would you rank the current Mariners bullpen arms? All right, so you want to start from 1? You want to start from 8? Where do you want to start here?
Let's start from the top.
All right. So Andres Munoz, right?
Yep. Easy.
Yep. Easy. Now there's a little bit of a debate here, maybe. Matt Brash, Paul Sewald. Really? Sewald over Brash still? I
just trust him a little bit more right now.
Okay.
I can't. I'm still worried about Brash throwing enough strikes.
I'm gonna go Brash because I have to. I have to go Matt Brash.
Yeah.
So Sewald 3 for me. Brash 3 for you. Brash 8 for you. Yeah.
Brash is 3. Yeah.
Okay. Now this is where it gets even more interesting. So is it Diego Castillo? Is it maybe a dark horse like a Matt Festa here? Like, what are you thinking?
I feel like it's kind of Matt Festa. To be honest with you, I just
strikeouts.
I mean, they're legit.
Yeah.
Like Diego probably is number 4 on the Mariners pecking order. But I'd probably still trust Vesta a little bit more than Diego at this stage.
Yeah, I trust Festa more. Diego's fun when he's got his stuff in order, but it's so it's so hit and miss.
You never
sometimes.
know.
You never know. Yeah, Diego Castillo is like a box of chocolates.
Sure.
All right, so yeah, I'll agree with you there. I'll go Festa 4. I'll go DBB 5.
Sure.
And then all right, so we get into the group of like Trevor Gott, Penn Murphy, the guys that are essentially competing to enter the bullpen. Unless I'm missing someone. Am I missing someone? Am I doing that thing again where I'm missing someone obvious? I don't think so. I'm looking at their roster right now. So yeah, out of this hodgepodge of relievers here, who you going with at number 5? I think I'm going Penn Murphy.
Yeah, it's probably Penn, and then Penn Murphy, and then probably Gott at 6.
Yeah. And then 7 and 8 is like Topa, just based off of just based off of what Jerry has said, essentially. Because like I don't know,
right.
like Jerry says the metrics are great on Justin Topa. I have no idea. He's I guess he's one of those pitch grade poppers, right? So,
yeah. PGPs.
Yeah. So I'll just say Topa 7, and you know what, Isaiah Campbell 8. Even though he's probably not going to make the bullpen out of camp, but whatever.
No, I mean, I'll stick to the spirit of it. Flexen, assuming he doesn't get traded,
sure,
is like probably last. I think instead of like Topa, though, I think I'll probably go Clark at 7 just because he's on the 40-man. Oh, okay. No, is Topa's on the 40-man too?
Topa's on the 40-man.
Yeah. So... do I want to rule 5?
Do you want some other options?
No, I mean, like there's Clark, right? There's Campbell.
There's Easton McGee, your favorite. Your other favorite,
Bernardino,
Taylor Saucedo.
Yeah, Saucy.
Yeah. Gabe Spire.
Ooh, okay.
And of course 110.
Yeah, and Brennan Bernardino. Don't forget Brennan Bernardino.
And Brennan Bernardino. That's right. Yeah.
No, I think I'll probably go with. By
the way, how has 110 survived the winter? That's crazy, right?
I don't know. We say the same thing about Brennan Bernardino. Like he's the guy they're going to DFA. Nope. I'll tell you what. I think Gabe Spire's got a shot here, but
okay. Yeah.
I'll say because Jerry seems to really like him. I'll say Topa and then Flexen.
Yeah, same.
So I have Munoz, Seawald, Brash, Festa, Castillo, Gott, Murphy.
I think our lists are essentially the same, except for 2 and 3 are flipped.
Yeah. Then we both kind of picked. Yeah.
It's pretty much chalk with these guys. I mean, you kind of know, what their ranking is in the overall hierarchy of the Mariners bullpen. So
then there's like 5 or 6 guys who are competing for the last bullpen spot.
Yeah, and so I essentially trust all of those guys about the same, which is really not at all because I don't know anything about them outside of what.
By the way, a little bit like a dark horse non-40-man guy. Apparently, AJ Puckett.
I heard.
I don't know if you saw that video.
I did
and saw the numbers on. I saw the numbers
from Joe. Yeah. I saw what Joe posted about AJ Puckett. All right.
Yeah, there's some legitimate stuff there. All right, like he jumped up a little bit, and so don't sleep on AJ Puckett.
Well.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they got a lot of fun options this year. I'm actually really excited about the bullpen competition coming up here in a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. This is going to be pretty fun to sort through, and they have depth because I mean. Injuries are going to happen. It's just the way things are. I know they were remarkably healthy, especially in the rotation this past year, but that stuff, not trying to curse the Mariners here. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, all that good stuff. But you're going to need some depth there, and so they have some interesting arms to pull from.
I would just say there's a lot of really good stuff competing for that last spot, and it's possible that two of those guys make it because either they trade flex in or one of those guys just leapfrog somebody like Penn Murphy.
Right.
Or
Festa or someone. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Or injuries. Yeah.
Or they trade,
whatever.
Diego or blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Et cetera. Et cetera. Et cetera. All right. Last question of the day comes from Whiffski. Not a Mariners question per se, however, interested in y'all's thoughts, especially given the MLB Network failed contracts with YouTube. What can Major League Baseball and teams like the Mariners do to connect with younger audiences and recapture lost viewership? Maybe, promote your players. That would be a good start. When I was a kid, baseball players were like superheroes. And nowadays maybe it's just now I'm an adult and I just don't have that perspective anymore, but I don't feel like there's a single Major League Baseball player out there right now that kids can look to like a freaking superhero. I mean, I look at Julio like a superhero. I look at Julio as a superhero personally, but I don't think Major League Baseball is doing a great enough job to make Julio look like a superhero overall.
Every promo you run, Major League Baseball, should have Julio prominently featured on it.
Yeah. Because Julio, it should have Ohtani, it should have Trout, it should have all these guys.
Yeah, like I'm not making this about the cover thing, but like Jazz Chisholm, I like Jazz. He's a good player. He's a fun player. You should not be trying to make that guy the face of your sport. I'm sorry, but yeah, I think it starts there. First of all, though, Ty, did you say the YouTube?
The YouTube?
I thought you said. With them being canceled on the YouTube, you old man.
But I read the question verbatim, especially given MLB Network failed contracts with YouTube. Nope. All right. I guess I added the YouTube.
You said the YouTube. Anyways,
we'll roll the tape back. Actually, we won't because we're too lazy.
No. But anyways, Major League Baseball has an issue that stems from one fundamental principle, and it is that they are more worried about keeping old fans than they are about acquiring new fans. And I know the old adage is, it's easier to keep a customer than it is to get a new one. It's a lot cheaper. True. But there's an issue when your old customer is frankly dying, right? Major League Baseball is still extremely popular with the 50 plus group. Those folks are dying, and you haven't done enough to bring in the 18 to 34s. That's the issue with Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball also has an issue in that they try to do this thing where they're like the NBA, like Sunday Night Baseball, and oh my God, it's Dodgers Giants. Who cares about Dodgers Giants? Dodger fans and Giants fans. Nobody else. Major League Baseball is a regional game. The regional networks, the regional ratings for teams are better than ever. They're not having issue drawing regional games. It's the nationally televised games that they're having issues with because baseball isn't the NBA, right? Baseball is about teams. The NBA is about players, right? And football is just in a league of its own right now in the US. So they can pull, a 7 share on Jaguars Titans on Thursday Night Football. Who cares? So yeah, it's a little different. But they try to do this thing where we need to make sure that we don't lose any of our 65 plus viewers, which you're losing anyways, because unfortunately they're getting old. Right. But we also need to make sure that we don't allow the guys to celebrate because we have a different code and we're not worried about the 18 to 34s because why? Because we don't have them now anyways. And you know what I mean? Like, it's just this whole vicious circle where Major League Baseball is so worried about maintaining like their code and keeping their quickly aging fan base that for 2 decades, they essentially ignored anybody 35 and younger. And now they're paying the price for it because now they have to try and play catch up.
Yeah. It's a marketability issue. And the thing too, and we could have a really long, we could do this whole podcast about this. So I'll try to just summarize my thoughts here. But I mean, it can be, from the type of commentators you're getting that tell the story of the game on these nationally televised broadcasts and whatnot. You need people that can really engage, especially with a younger audience, to get them interested in the game and make the game cool, because the game is cool, right? But the game at face value to kids that are, growing up watching the NBA right now and everything that's going on in that league, like, you got to do a lot to catch their attention. You have to do a lot here. You have to do a lot to not necessarily convert them, but to say, hey, come over here. We're doing some cool stuff over here too. And so the big issue with that, right, is like not marketing their players well, doing things on social media, like taking down clips and, all the copyright strikes. And they've gotten a little bit better about that, I think.
Yeah.
But that's been a pretty big issue in the past.
Right.
It's just because the thing too, like the thing that Major League Baseball does really well, the one thing that I'll give them is this, and it's not necessarily Major League Baseball itself, but it's just kind of the sport in general, is that they make so much information and data easily available.
Mm-hmm.
No other sport really does that, right? You look at football, you got to pay for PFF and SIS and all those outlets.
Right.
Hockey is still complicated to get any sort of like advanced stats or anything like that. Basketball, I haven't watched much basketball lately, but I'm pretty sure there's like the basketball
advanced
references of the world and whatnot. But
but their advanced stat is like plus and minus.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Baseball does do a really good job of making that information available.
Yeah.
They don't do a great job of marketing it.
Yeah.
But they do a good job of making it available. And that's why I think that they should be lax-ish with like going after content creators who use their clips. I mean, obviously, like, no, you can't put a whole game on your YouTube channel, right? But if you want to use a 15-second clip, we're not going to come after you. Like, we don't care. Get the game out there. Let's make it available to everybody.
Well, and that's
speaking of which,
the growth of basketball, right? Content creators on YouTube. The guys like on the Bleacher Report and Chris Smooth
the NBA,
and all these dudes. Yeah.
The NBA, as far as I know, is a lot more lenient with who they go after in terms of like using their like clips from their games and whatnot. So Major League Baseball should adopt that because, most kids, they're not watching MLB Network anymore. A lot of people use YouTube, right? And they'll go on and they'll watch, oh, I like Jazz Chisholm. I'm going to go watch this video on Jazz Chisholm, right? Yeah. And that gets people to pay attention to your game. And I guess finally, while we're at it, we might as well just say it. In the blackout restrictions, it's the dumbest thing ever. Trying to force people to pay for cable in an era where cable sucks. Nobody wants to pay for cable.
Well, and more people would buy MLB TV and therefore watch more games.
Exactly. So if you already have MLB TV and you want to watch the Yankees and the Orioles play, right? Because if the Orioles win, you can clinch the playoff spot tonight. Gee, that sounds familiar, right? Well, I'm not going to buy that package for one game if I can't watch any of my team's games. And as we mentioned at the beginning, baseball is a regional game. You care about your team and nobody else's team for the most part. Right. Yeah. So MLB Network needs to end their stupid blackout restrictions. They need to get out of bed with cable companies and understand that cable is the way of the past. Now it's all about streaming. They need to make that accessible to people without having to pay. Hey, by the way, now in order to get Mariner games on a streaming service, great. It's $80 a month on top of the cable that you already pay for. That's $120 a month.
Right.
I mean, it's dumb. It's absolutely dumb. In the blackout restrictions, get your game on as many platforms as you possibly can and screw the rest. The rest will come.
Well, and because when you do that, right, you open the door for content creators that have platforms to essentially promote your game for free.
Free advertising.
Who are watching all the games. I think of a guy like Rob Perez who watches all the basketball games, and he talks about all the basketball games that are happening on Twitter, and he does like streams and all this stuff talking about the night in the league, right? Yeah. And you could have people doing that for Major League Baseball, and it would get huge because people like if you deliver your product in a way that is accessible for people, especially for folks that are Colby and I's generation or the generations behind us, you're going to find success here in building and growing your game. It's about making baseball cool again, essentially, right? Because you are fighting with the NBA, which has a lot of personalities and a lot of stars
and celebrates it.
And memes and all this stuff, right? And same with football too, to a certain degree. But there isn't a lot of individuality in baseball right now when there should be. Yeah. And there should be, right? Because like when I was growing up, there was individuality in baseball. You know, there was like the stars, right? There were the Barry Bonds of the world and whatnot, you know, and Derek Jeter, et cetera, growing up. So, and Ichiro. And, you know, whether you watch the team religiously or watch the league religiously, or you just kind of watch it every now and then, you knew who those guys were. If I showed a picture of Mike Trout, or here, I could show like my wife who doesn't watch sports at all, a picture of LeBron James. She knows who that is automatically. If I show her a picture of Mike Trout, who's essentially the LeBron James of baseball, she has no clue who that guy is.
Yeah.
She's just a random white dude, you know, to her. Like, that's it. So, yeah. All right. Well, we're way over time. Again, surprise, surprise. Look at us. But that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here, and thank you guys for all of your questions. We got a lot of submissions this week, so sorry to those of you that we didn't answer. I think Colby might be going on Twitter and answering some of those that were left unanswered, like he does pretty much every week that we do one of these mailbag shows. So keep an eye out for that if your question did not get answered on here. But for Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DaneGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. And with that, have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you on Wednesday. Peace.